Good morning. Good morning. You look happy, joyous, and free. That's what I've been thinking all of the morning. I didn't see you at the first half of the morning.
That's because you've started getting up at 6 a.m.
Rise and grind, baby. Rise and grind. I know. It's it's how my life used to run pre-COVID.
Yeah. You're very effective in the morning.
So I'm happy. Yeah,
happy
my
for
mind my mind works well. My body works well. I don't know, not really.
I think God has created me differently.
Maybe we're all created the same
No,
and
I don't
equal.
think we
Maybe
are
we
not
are.
all created the
See,
same.
that's part of the disease that we have, the illusion that
No.
we are different.
No. It's not an illusion.
No, I get it that we're snowflakes and we're all different, but I think that we're created the same and equal.
We are not all.
So do you think you're lower than me or above me
I think
or equal to me?
we are
I think we're
not wrong, just different.
I
Do you
think
remember that marriage course? Not wrong,
I
just
I
different.
think we're all made the same though. Like you operate well in the morning.
Wow.
Like you're creative.
I hope that there's some professionals that maybe get a glimpse of this, or maybe friends who watch this who have a therapist who could say like, "Hey, no, my therapist says."
I think you're getting off topic.
Just saying,
I think
we are not all created the
this
same.
morning I woke up and I saw you and I said, you look happy, joyous, and free. And that's the result of a relationship with God.
It is.
And
It is.
it's nothing that you can do, it's something that you have to be. Yeah. And then I was reminded.
And there's been a lot of being
early. Yeah, there's a lot of
right now.
I was reminded earlier about getting back to normal, and people were like, you know what? A big thing that I'm hearing is touch. I want to touch people. And I'm like,
You don't need-
maybe the new normal doesn't have to be touchy. That like maybe the new normal could just be like, hey, what's up, little elbow? I'm not against touching, like at all. But I think in a therapeutic environment, especially running a rehab center, we actually have to make rules about touch because
Right.
a lot of touches, a lot of hug could actually repel people. It actually can cause an emotional disturbance, a memory.
Yeah.
I know that people with horrible abuse backgrounds, I know as somebody that has been involved in a therapeutic environment for 8 years, even touching someone, I've made these mistakes where I've touched somebody on the back of the shoulder and they've reacted.
And that, I think, and even so, that's very important. But also, there's people who just don't love being hugged all the time. They don't need somebody hugging them.
But there are people
Not-
that love to
And
hug.
there's people that love to hug, and I just think
And
that
some of these women in early recovery don't even get a chance to put the feet on the floor because they're being hugged so much. Ugh.
I like hugs.
I don't want to be
But
known
I
as
don't-
anti-hugger.
No. I like hugs, but I actually don't need to hug everyone. I really like
You
to
become,
hug you.
instead of dealing drugs, now you're dealing hugs. That's what they do at these meetings. And it's like, oh, come give me a hug, baby. Come give me a hug. Recovery.
I don't want to. I don't want to.
Ew. Like,
It's nothing personal. And that's the thing. It's nothing personal. It's not personal about specific people, but it's more like there are very specific people that I want to embrace.
You don't want to.
I really want to embrace my son.
We don't want to.
I really want my son to want to hug me.
She's very untouchy-feely. So she has incorporated every day 20 seconds of physical touch, where he literally curls up in the corner of the wall.
No, he started headlocking me and counting that as
I've
20
seen that
seconds of
too.
physical touch.
Does that count?
He
Does that
doesn't
do
curl up
something
in
to
a
you?
ball. He like
Does it?
noogies
Does
me.
it noogie?
He
Does it give
do
you a
know the
shot of
noogie?
cortisone?
It's supposed to. So a
We
friend.
didn't get the nuggie. We got the drill. The
drill.
drilling for
Oh,
oil in the
no.
chest until you cried or you said uncle.
Yeah. So we've been trying. My son's 24. He doesn't.
Is that physical abuse?
Me forcing him to hug me.
That or the drill. I think it's good fun, good camaraderie for children. And I think as an adult, I don't think you're parenting properly if you haven't made your son cry.
haven't harassed your
As a man, I don't.
Okay, we've
I don't
digressed.
think.
We really need to read our book.
It's an odd number, right?
It is.
That would be me.
It's you. You're on May 7th.
Where's me spectacles?
May 7th. We're a week into May already.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So I don't know what we're reading yet, but
Letting go of fear.
oh, this is so good. This is so good.
So applicable to you.
And
Probably not me.
oh my goodness. Just read. Just read.
I was going to say something on fear. I was thinking about fear.
Let's talk after.
Yeah. Okay.
We've already wasted so much time.
Spent time. Fear is at the core of codependency. See how it doesn't apply?
Don't look at me.
It can motivate us to control situations or neglect ourselves. Many of us have been afraid for so long that we don't label our feelings fear. We're used to feeling upset and anxious. It feels normal. Peace and serenity may be uncomfortable. At one time, fear may have been appropriate and useful. We may have relied on fear to protect ourselves, much the way soldiers in war rely on fear to help them survive. But now, in recovery, we're living different. It's time to thank our old fears for helping us survive, then wave goodbye to them. Welcome peace, trust, acceptance, and safety. We don't need that much fear anymore. We can listen to our healthy fears and let go of the rest. We can create a feeling of safety for ourselves now. We are safe now. We've made a commitment to take care of ourselves. We can trust and love ourselves. My prayer for today. God, help me let go of my need to be afraid. Replace it with a need to be at peace. Help me listen to my healthy fears and relinquish the rest. Amen. Amen.
I loved the sentence. 2 sentences. Many of us have been afraid for so long that we don't label our feelings fear. We're used to feeling upset and anxious. It feels normal. And that was just normal. I think, especially when people grow up in chaos or grow up in like environments that don't feel peaceful and safe, it's a very familiar feeling to be upset and anxious. That was my initial thought.
It's normal, right?
And that actually peace and serenity are uncomfortable. And we have to actually make a choice that we want to live differently.
And that's a spiritual experience, having a different spirit than fear. And I know in my early recovery, I remember them teaching about fear at the rehab center that I was at. And I started laughing out loud because it was like I looked in the mirror and all I saw was fear. And I would have been one of those people that were fearless. I was very impulsive. I wasn't scared of getting in trouble with the police or whatever in my later life. But fear was this thread throughout my whole life. And
that you masked with bravado.
Bravado and impulsiveness and
aggression.
Punching people.
Aggression. That's the word.
Punching others.
You masked your fear with aggression.
Yeah.
Bravado.
But that fear actually is part of my addiction because the fear is what I tried to drown. That was what I needed a solution for. Right. And so when that fear is a solution comes into that fear, then I don't feel those things anymore. I don't really care. And I can be very more impulsive, especially with alcohol. And then when I get sober, I still have this stuff in me. I still need a solution. And so that's incorporating God and having a relationship. Whether you have a belief in God, it doesn't mean you have access to God. So really going through the recovery process and getting access to God, Him becoming my solution. And I love the things right here where it says, welcome peace, trust, acceptance, and safety. And we have a God that is our shepherd. He's a good shepherd. He's our provider. He is the vine and we are the branches. Apart from Him, we can have nothing except fear and resentment and anger.
I remember using, I don't trust, I can't trust anyone, or I don't trust. I remember using that. I remember coming to a realization that I was using that as a wall, as a barrier to protect myself. And and that it was a choice that I was making. And I remember making the choice to trust God, that I would choose to trust God. I would choose to trust that God loved me, that he created me, that he wanted what he wanted so much good for me. He didn't want everything that I had been through, broke his heart, that he cried for me when I cried, that when I was hurting, he was hurting, and realizing that he wanted so much more for me and that I could trust him. He was the only one I needed to trust.
And it sounds so easy up here, but in here, because there are people that have the inability to let go of fear because they have been sexually abused, physically abused. So they have so much fear. And so when we go into the healing process, it's one thing to say, well, I don't have a part in this. And no, you're not responsible for the hurt that was given to you, but you're responsible for holding on to it. And so when it comes to fear, what I think number one is like, I have to admit my part is not letting go of it. I was unable to forgive. And so through the process of healing, I become able to forgive. I can walk into truth of forgiveness. And then the other thing is I had fear of people. I didn't tell anybody about my hurt and my pain. And so I have a fear of what you're going to think of me. So yeah, it's a process. It's called recovery. It's called entering a relationship with a higher power greater than yourself, who we call Jesus. May you find him now. Let go of fear. Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Stay blessed.
Have a great